The vast emptiness of space held no comfort for little Ada as her small escape pod drifted between the stars. Her violet skin trembled despite the pod's temperature controls, and her large, silver eyes blinked rapidly to hold back tears. She was only 12 cycles old, barely a child by her species standards, and now she was completely alone. The Bright Council had betrayed her people. The Luminous, as her species was known throughout the galaxy, were supposed to be peaceful diplomats and scholars. But Ada had discovered the terrible truth: the Council was selling information about vulnerable species to the notorious slave traders of the Crimson Belt. When Ada had accidentally stumbled upon their secret communications while helping in the archives, she knew she had to run. Her parents, both respected scholars, had helped her escape. "Find the humans," her mother had whispered urgently as she sealed Ada's pod. "They're called savages by the Council, but they protect their own. They might protect you too." Those were the last words Ada heard from her mother before the pod launched into space. Through the viewport, she had watched in horror as Council guards surrounded her parents. She didn't know if they were still alive. Now, 3 days later, her pod systems were failing. The life support would last another week at most, but the navigation system was already damaged. Ada had basic pilot training, all Luminous children did, but she had no idea how to find Earth or its colonies. The pod's database only contained vague warnings about humans, dangerous predators, volatile emotions, unpredictable aggression. A sudden alarm jolted Ada from her thoughts. The pod sensors had detected a large ship approaching. Her heart raced as she checked the scanner. It wasn't a Luminous vessel, the energy signature was all wrong. It wasn't a Crimson Belt slave ship either, thank the stars. But that still left countless possibilities, many of them dangerous. The ship drew closer, and Ada could finally see its markings through the viewport. Strange symbols in white paint stood out against the dark hull: USS Horizon. The design was unlike anything she'd seen before, functional rather than elegant, with visible weapons but also large observation windows. Most notably, it lacked the usual markings of a merchant or military vessel. Another alarm blared. The ship was scanning her pod. Ada's hands shook as she tried to remember her diplomatic training. First contact scenarios were supposed to be carefully planned, with teams of experts and proper protocols. Instead, she was alone, frightened, and quickly running out of options. The pod's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in clear, simple Galactic standard: "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Rogers of the USS Horizon. We've detected critical failures in your life support systems. Do you require assistance?" Ada hesitated. The voice sounded concerned, but she'd learned the hard way that appearances could be deceiving. Still, she had little choice. Her pod wouldn't sustain her much longer. "Please," she responded in shaky Galactic standard. "I seek asylum. The Bright Council, they're not what they seem. They'll kill me if they find me." There was a pause, the longest moment of Ada's young life. Then the voice returned, firmer this time: "We're bringing you aboard. Don't worry, kid. You're safe now." As the ship's tractor beam gently pulled her pod toward a loading bay, Ada noticed something odd. The ship's energy readings were finally clear enough for her pod's computer to identify its origin: Earth. She had found the humans. Or rather, they had found her. The pod shuddered as it passed through the ship's shield barrier. Ada took a deep breath and straightened her simple white robe, the only possession she had managed to bring with her. She didn't know if she could trust these humans, but her mother's words echoed in her mind: "They protect their own." Maybe, just maybe, they would protect her too. The loading bay of the USS Horizon was bigger than Ada had expected. As her pod's door hissed open, she found herself facing 6 humans in dark blue uniforms. Their appearance shocked her. The Council's archives hadn't prepared her for how similar they looked to her own people: despite their rounded ears and varied skin colors. Captain Rogers stepped forward, and Ada immediately recognized his voice from the communication. He was tall, with graying hair and kind eyes that reminded her of her father. Behind him stood a woman in a white coat holding strange devices, likely their medical officer. "Welcome aboard," Rogers said, his voice gentle. "I'm Captain Tom Rogers. This is Dr. Miller, our chief medical officer." He gestured to the woman, who smiled warmly. "We don't get many visitors from the luminous worlds out here." Ada's legs trembled as she stepped out of the pod. The ship's gravity was slightly stronger than what she was used to. I'm Ada," she managed to say. "Thank you for saving me." Dr. Miller approached slowly, holding up one of her devices. "May I scan you? We want to make sure you're okay after being in that pod for so long." Ada nodded, remembering her mother's medical checkups. The device hummed softly as it passed over her. The doctor's expression grew concerned as she read the results. "She's dehydrated and exhausted," Dr. Miller announced. "And her body temperature is lower than it should be, based on the luminous medical data we have." Captain Rogers frowned. "Let's continue this conversation in the medical bay. Ada, can you walk?" Before she could answer, Ada's legs buckled. 3 days of stress and minimal life support had taken their toll. To her surprise, Captain Rogers quickly stepped forward and caught her before she could fall. His grip was gentle but secure. "I've got you, kid," he said, carefully lifting her. "Thompson, secure the pod and download its data. Miller, with me." As they carried her through the ship's corridors, Ada noticed how different it was from luminous vessels. Everything was practical, built for function rather than beauty. The crew they passed looked at her with curiosity but not hostility. Some even smiled. In the medical bay, Dr. Miller helped Ada onto a bed while Captain Rogers pulled up a chair. "You mentioned the Bright Council," he said carefully. "They're supposed to be your people's leadership, right?" Ada nodded, accepting a cup of warm, sweet liquid from Dr. Miller. "They're corrupt," she whispered. "They're working with slave traders. I found proof in the archives, but—" Her voice broke as she remembered her parents. The captain and doctor exchanged dark looks. "The Crimson Belt?" Rogers asked. When Ada nodded again, his jaw tightened. "We've had run-ins with them before. Nasty piece of work." "Captain," a new voice called from the doorway. A young officer held up a data pad. "We've analyzed the pod's data. She's right. There's encrypted communication logs between council members and known Crimson Belt operators. They've been selling navigation data for refugee routes." Rogers stood up, his expression hardening. "Those routes are supposed to be sacred. Thousands of people use them to escape conflict zones." He turned back to Ada, his voice softening again. "You did the right thing, running away. But you should know, this puts us in a complicated position. The Luminous don't officially recognize human authority." "Please," Ada clutched the cup tighter. "My mother said humans protect their own. She told me to find you. I don't have anywhere else to go." Dr. Miller placed a gentle hand on Ada's shoulder. "Tom, she's just a child." The captain was quiet for a moment, studying Ada's face. Finally, he nodded. "Well, your mother was right about one thing. We do protect our own." He smiled. "And as of right now, you're under the protection of the United Space Fleet. The Council will have to go through us to get to you." For the first time since leaving home, Ada felt her heart's lift. Maybe there was hope after all. 2 days had passed aboard the USS Horizon, and Ada was beginning to understand why other species called humans predators. Not because they were cruel, quite the opposite. It was the way they moved when danger approached, the calm efficiency that transformed their usually relaxed demeanor. The danger came sooner than anyone expected. Ada was in the ship's mess hall with Dr. Miller, trying her first ice cream, a fascinating human invention, when the alert sirens began to wail. Captain Rogers to the bridge, the announcement system crackled. Priority alert. 3 luminous vessels approaching at high speed. Dr. Miller immediately stood up, her friendly smile replaced with determination. Come with me, Ada. We have a safe room prepared, just in case. As they hurried through the corridors, Ada saw crew members rushing to their stations. None of them looked afraid, just focused, like hunters preparing for a confrontation. The safe room turned out to be a reinforced chamber near the ship's core, equipped with its own life support and communication systems. Stay here, Dr. Miller said, handing Ada a small device. This is a direct line to the bridge. You'll be able to hear what's happening. Through the device, Ada heard Captain Rogers's voice as clear as if she were on the bridge. Luminous vessels, this is USS Horizon. You're approaching awfully fast for a friendly visit. A cold, familiar voice responded, High Counselor Bright, the same person who had ordered her parents' arrest. Human vessel, you have something that belongs to us. A dangerous criminal who stole sensitive information. Return her immediately, or we will consider this an act of war. Interesting accusation, Rogers replied calmly. But our scans show your criminal is a child. Care to explain why the mighty Bright Council is hunting a 12-year-old? Human, Bright's voice dripped with contempt, you don't understand our ways. That child has accessed classified information. She's a security risk. Oh, we understand plenty. Rogers's voice hardened. We understand that those classified files show you selling out refugee routes to slave traders. We understand that you're willing to kill a child to keep that quiet. And we understand exactly what kind of people that makes you. Ada's heart pounded as she listened. Through the device's small screen, she could see the tactical display. The 3 luminous ships had taken up attack positions around the horizon. This is your final warning, Bright declared. Return the criminal, or we will open fire. Let me give you a warning instead. Rogers's voice became dangerously quiet. The USS Horizon is a deep space exploration vessel. We operate alone in unknown territory. That means we're built to handle anything. Your ships are fancy diplomatic vessels with some weapons bolted on. If you start this fight, I promise you won't like how it ends. There was a long pause. Ada held her breath. You would risk war with the luminous worlds to protect one child? Bright asked, incredulous. Yes. Rogers's answer was immediate. Because that's what humans do. We protect children, all children, not just our own. And we hunt those who hurt them. So make your choice, counselor. But remember, if you fire on us, you're not just starting a fight with one ship. You're declaring war on humanity itself. And we've got a reputation for being real nasty in wars we didn't start. The tension stretched out like a drawn wire. On the tactical display, Ada watched as the luminous ships held their positions. Finally, Bright spoke again, his voice tight with suppressed rage. This isn't over, human. No, Rogers agreed. It's just beginning. Horizon out. The luminous ships slowly turned away, their engines flaring as they retreated into deep space. Ada sagged with relief, but she noticed the humans didn't relax. If anything, they became more alert. Through the device, she heard Rogers giving orders, send everything we have on the Council's corruption to Fleet Command. And get me a secure line to Earth. The Luminous aren't going to let this go, we need to be ready when they come back. In her safe room, Ada whispered a quiet thank you to her mother. She had been right about the humans. They weren't the mindless predators the Council claimed. They were protectors who would fight like predators when necessary, especially to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. The next few days aboard the USS Horizon brought significant changes. The ship was no longer just exploring, it was on a mission. Ada watched from her new quarters as more human vessels arrived, each one taking up defensive positions around the horizon. The humans called it a battle group. "Your testimony is making waves," Captain Rogers told her during their daily meeting in the ship's garden, a small room filled with earth plants that the crew maintained for fresh food and comfort. "The evidence from your pod has been verified by 3 different intelligence agencies. The Council's corruption goes deeper than anyone imagined." Ada sat cross-legged on a bench, watching the strange earth flowers sway in the artificial breeze. Have you found anything about my parents?" Rogers's face softened. "We have agents looking. The Council is claiming they're under protective custody, but we're working on getting them out." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Ada, there's something else you should know. You're not the first one to discover their crimes." He handed her a data pad. On it were dozens of reports, missing persons cases from the luminous worlds. Children, mostly, who had disappeared after their parents reported suspicious Council activities. "They've been doing this for years," Rogers explained gently. "Selling information, making whistleblowers vanish. But they made a mistake this time." He smiled. "They let you escape to us." A small alert chimed on Rogers's communicator. "Bridge to Captain," a voice reported. "We're receiving a transmission from the refugee ship we contacted. They're ready to talk." Ada looked up, surprised. "Refugee ship?" "Come with me," Rogers offered his hand. "There's someone you should meet." On the bridge, a large communication screen showed a startling sight, a ship full of luminous children, their violet skin and silver eyes just like Ada's. At their head stood a tall luminous woman with determination etched on her face. "Ada," Rogers gestured to the screen, "meet Captain Bright." "Former High Counselor Bright's daughter," the woman corrected, her voice strong and clear. "I've been running this underground railroad for 3 years, getting children and families away from the Council's influence. When we heard about what you did, Ada, we knew it was time to come out of hiding." Ada stared at the screen in wonder. "There are more? More like me?" "Hundreds," Captain Bright nodded. "All hidden throughout human space. The Council calls humans predators, but they've been protecting our people's children while our own leaders hunted them." She turned to Rogers. "We're ready to testify before your United Earth Council. All of us. The truth needs to come out." "It's risky," Rogers warned. "The Council will retaliate. Let them." Captain Bright's silver eyes flashed. "They've ruled through fear long enough. It's time our people learned what real leadership looks like, from the humans who showed more compassion to our children than our own leaders ever did." As the adults discussed strategy, Ada noticed something on her data pad. Hidden in the ship's communication logs was an encrypted message, recently received. With trembling fingers, she decoded it using the skills she'd learned in the archives. "Captain," she interrupted, her voice shaking with emotion. "This message, it's from my mother." Rogers quickly read the decoded text, a smile spreading across his face. "Your parents are safe, Ada. They escaped during a prisoner transfer. They're on their way to us now." He looked up at Captain Bright's image. "I don't suppose you had anything to do with that?" The luminous captain's lips curved in a very human-like smile. "We might have created a distraction. Your Earth intelligence officers are remarkably helpful when properly motivated." For the first time since her escape, Ada felt tears rolling down her cheeks, but these were tears of joy. Around her, the human bridge crew shared knowing looks. They had protected her, and now they were helping to protect her entire people from corruption that had festered too long. "The Council calls us predators," Rogers mused, resting a gentle hand on Ada's shoulder. "Maybe it's time they learned that predators can be protectors too, when we're protecting the right things." The reunion with her parents happened in the Horizon's docking bay. Ada ran into their arms, all three of them glowing with joy, literally, as luminous emotions often manifested as soft light beneath their violet skin. The human crew watched from a respectful distance, many wiping away tears of their own. "My brave, clever girl," Ada's mother whispered, holding her tight. "We knew you'd find the humans. We knew they'd protect you." Her father looked older than Ada remembered, with new lines of worry on his face, but his smile was as warm as ever. "The council kept us isolated, but we heard rumors about you. About how a human captain faced down 3 warships to protect one child." He turned to Captain Rogers, who stood nearby. "Thank you for being what we hoped you'd be." But their reunion was interrupted by urgent alarms. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, the tactical officer announced. "Luminous signatures, lots of them." Rogers rushed to the bridge, with Ada and her parents following close behind. The tactical display showed an alarming sight: 15 luminous warships had appeared at the edge of the system. "They're not even trying to hide their intentions," Ada's father said grimly. "Those are executor-class vessels. Planet killers." "Message incoming," the communications officer reported. High Counselor Bright's face appeared on the main screen, his silver eyes cold with fury. "This charade ends now. You shelter criminals and spread lies about our great council. Surrender them all, or we will demonstrate why the galaxy fears to cross the luminous worlds." Rogers stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back. "Interesting timing, Counselor. Almost like you knew exactly when Ada's parents would arrive." His eyes narrowed. "Or maybe you were tracking them, hoping they'd lead you to something bigger." A slight smirk crossed the counselor's face. "You've hidden our runaways well, human. But now we'll have them all, the children, the traitors, and the evidence of our arrangements." About those arrangements, Rogers pressed a button on his chair. "While you were tracking Ada's parents, we were busy too. Right now, every major news network in Council space is receiving proof of your deals with the Crimson Belt. Your own people are learning how their leaders sold refugee routes to slavers." For the first time, the counselor's composure cracked. "You're bluffing." "Look behind you," Rogers suggested. On the screen, they could see other luminous officers on the counselor's bridge staring at their data feeds in horror. Some were already backing away from him. "It gets better," Rogers continued. "Remember Captain Bright? Turns out she's been documenting everything for years. All those missing children? They're safe. And their stories are being broadcast right now, along with testimony from hundreds of other refugees. You think stories will stop me?" Bright snarled. "I have 15 warships." "Look again," Rogers smiled. The tactical display updated. From behind nearby planets and moons, human ships emerged from hiding, dozens of them. And with them came other vessels, the refugee ships, now armed and upgraded with human technology. Leading them was Captain Bright's vessel, transformed from a simple transport into a formidable warship. "You see, Counselor," Rogers explained, "when you choose to become a predator, you should remember, there's always a bigger predator. Humanity didn't become a spacefaring civilization by being weak. We did it by protecting what matters, all life, not just human life." He stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Your own officers are deserting you as we speak. Your secrets are exposed. The people you betrayed are ready to fight back. So I'll make this simple: surrender now, face justice, and no one else has to get hurt." Ada watched in amazement as more luminous ships began powering down their weapons. On the screen, she could see officers on Bright's bridge stepping away from their stations, some openly turning their backs on him. The High Counselor's face contorted with rage. "If I fall," he spat, "I'm taking you all with me." His hands flew to his command console. Now we see the Predator's true face, Rogers said softly, then barked, all ships, defensive positions. Protect the refugee vessels at all costs. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as two fleets faced each other, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. High Counselor Bright's flagship opened fire first, its energy weapons lighting up space with deadly purple beams. But the humans were ready. The USS Horizon and its battle group moved with practiced precision, their shields absorbing the assault while protecting the refugee ships behind them. All ships, hold formation, Rogers commanded, his voice steadied despite the chaos. Remember your training. We're not here to destroy them, we're here to stop them. Defensive fire only. Ada watched from the bridge, her parents holding her close, as the space around them erupted into a devastating light show. The remaining loyal Council ships joined their leader's attack, but many others had already powered down their weapons, their crews refusing to fire on their own people. Their flagship is targeting the refugee ships, the tactical officer shouted. They're trying to eliminate the witnesses. Rogers's face hardened. Not on my watch. Horizon, move to intercept. Engineering, divert all power to forward shields. The massive human ship swung around, placing itself directly between Bright's vessel and the vulnerable refugee fleet. The impact of the Council flagship's weapons made the whole ship shudder. Hull breach on Deck 7, someone reported. Emergency force fields holding. Captain, Ada's father stepped forward, his scientific training coming to the fore. The Council flagship's main weapon, it has a critical weakness. The focusing crystal can't handle sustained fire. If you can keep them shooting at you. Rogers nodded in understanding. They'll burn out their own weapon. Tactical, target their secondary systems only. Keep them frustrated. Keep them firing at us. Minutes stretched like hours as the Horizon weathered the assault. Other human ships engaged the remaining loyal Council vessels, using precise shots to disable rather than destroy. Captain Bright's refugee fleet maintained their defensive screen, protecting the ships carrying hundreds of luminous children and families. Suddenly, a massive energy surge lit up the tactical display. Their main weapon is overloading, the science officer announced. Crystal structure failing. On the main screen, they could see the Council flagship's massive weapon array beginning to crack, energy bleeding out in dangerous patterns. Counselor, Rogers opened a channel, your weapon is critical. Power down now, or you'll destroy your own ship. Never. Bright's voice was almost unrecognizable with rage. I'll see you all burn first. He's diverting all power to the weapon, Ada's father reported, reading the sensor data. He's going to. A brilliant flash lit up space as the Council flagship's main weapon exploded, the overloaded crystal shattering in a chain reaction. The blast ripped through the ship's command section, leaving it dying in space. Get me damage reports from all ships, Rogers ordered. And launch rescue operations immediately, there are still good people on those Council vessels. The aftermath was swift. Without their leader and with their crimes exposed, the remaining Council loyalists surrendered. Human and refugee ships worked together to rescue crew members from damaged vessels. The news broadcasts continued throughout luminous space, showing not just the Council's corruption, but also the humanity's measured response, their choice to protect rather than destroy. In the hours that followed, Ada found herself in the Horizon's garden room again, this time with her parents, Captain Rogers, and Captain Bright. The human captain looked tired but satisfied as he read reports from his data pad. The Council's power structure is collapsing, he announced. Their own military is turning against the corrupt leadership. And the refugee testimonies are changing hearts and minds across luminous space. What happens now? Ada asked quietly. Captain Bright smiled. Now we rebuild. The luminous people are calling for new leadership, leadership that remembers our true values of peace and wisdom. She looked at Rogers. And we'll have help from our new allies. The humans aren't what we were taught, Ada's mother observed. The council called them predators. Maybe we are, Rogers replied, watching earth plants and luminous light flowers growing side by side in the garden. But being a predator doesn't make you evil. It's what you choose to do with your strength that matters. Ada touched one of the light flowers, making it glow brighter. You chose to protect. We always will, Rogers promised. That's what humans do, we protect those who need it, no matter who or what they are. And we'll help your people remember how to do the same. 1 year later, the great hall of the new luminous council sparkled with both starlight and the gentle glow of its inhabitants. Ada stood beside Captain Rogers, watching as humans and luminous moved among each other with easy familiarity. The former refugee ships, now transformed into a joint peacekeeping fleet, could be seen through the hall's crystal windows, patrolling alongside human vessels. Hard to believe it's only been a year, Rogers mused, his dress uniform gleaming with new medals, honors from both human and luminous governments. The Joint Refugee Protection Program alone has saved thousands. Ada nodded, thinking of the many children who now had stories like hers. The corrupt council members had been brought to justice, their network of slave trade collaborators dismantled piece by piece. The Crimson Belt's power had been broken by joint human-luminous operations, their leadership now facing trial for crimes against sentient beings. The archives are different now, Ada said, thinking of her old workplace. We're recording everything, the good and the bad. No more secrets, no more hidden crimes. She smiled. And we're sharing knowledge with Earth's libraries. Real cultural exchange, just like we always should have done. Captain Bright, now Admiral Bright, approached them, her new uniform combining traditional luminous designs with practical human elements. The latest reports are in, she announced. The last holdout worlds have agreed to join the Federation. The healing can truly begin. Through another window, Ada could see the massive structure taking shape in orbit, the Intergalactic Academy of Peace and Protection. It would be a place where young humans and luminous could train together, learning from each other's strengths. Already, other species were sending observers, intrigued by this unexpected alliance. They're ready for you, Ada's mother called from nearby. She and Ada's father had become key figures in the new government, their scientific expertise helping to forge stronger bonds between the two species. Ada straightened her own uniform, a cadet's outfit that combined both cultures, just like her role would. At 16 cycles old now, she was to be one of the Academy's first students, chosen to speak at its inauguration. As she walked to the podium, Ada remembered that terrified girl in the escape pod, running from corruption that seemed too powerful to fight. She remembered the humans who had chosen to protect her, to fight for justice even when it wasn't their fight. And she remembered how that choice had changed everything. A year ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall, I learned the true meaning of strength. I learned it not from my own people, who had lost their way, but from humans, the very species we had been taught to fear. She gestured to the assembled crowd, where humans and luminous sat together in harmony. We called them predators, and we were right, but we didn't understand what that truly meant. A predator can be a destroyer, yes. But a predator can also be the fiercest protector. The humans showed us that strength isn't about dominance, it's about how you use your power to help others. The light beneath her violet skin glowed brighter with emotion. Today, we build something new. Not just an academy, not just an alliance, but a promise. A promise that we will be like the humans who saved me, protectors of the innocent, guardians of justice, defenders of truth. That we will use our strength not to oppress, but to lift up those who need our help. She looked at Captain Rogers, who nodded proudly. The humans reminded us of who we were meant to be. And now, together, we will show the galaxy what true strength looks like, the strength to protect, to heal, and to make the darkness flee before our light. As applause filled the hall, Ada saw hope in every face, human and luminous alike. The old council had feared humanity's predator nature, never understanding that sometimes you need a predator's strength to protect what matters most. Now, that lesson would echo through the stars, carried by the children they had saved together. The galaxy would know, when the innocent cry out for help, humanity's predator heart beats with the fierce love of a protector. And now, the luminous would stand with them, guardians of a brighter future for all.